Is this a long time coming, or is this a long time coming, man?
This definitely been a long time coming.
So this is.
I think.
Do people know who you are, man? I think ex-host.
I think it's we need to give people a reminder.
Hell yeah, we do. We do need to give people a reminder. Right. Oh man, gosh, like when we started Second Floor, we did Q Filmz together. We've done a lot of projects together, man. It's really, really nice to now have this conversation with you. Yeah. Just because we haven't had a conversation properly.
We actually haven't. We've been talking about it. We wanted to do this for, I guess even last year we were like, well, I'll come back on and we'll have a discussion, but we just, things kept coming up and just never ended up happening. And I think I didn't feel ready either to like come back and have a proper discussion with you, especially something that's it's going to go out and people are going to hear about it. Right? So I just felt like there's things that I was working on in the back end, and but I think the time's right now.
Yeah. Man, and people don't know this because I think not even Kenny knows this, but when we started Second Floor, we actually did an episode in our old office.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And okay. Well, I
guess let's take people back. Let's make them understand where we kind of came from and what the whole process looked like. Right. Me and you, we properly met about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I think it was 2017, I think is when we met, 2018, something like that.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of, clicked, and then we started, talking more, we started hanging out more. And that's when Q Filmz, was brought. And before that, I wasn't doing any video stuff. I wasn't doing any of that.
Yeah.
And then when Q Filmz came up, we were like, okay, let's go try to do something. Yeah. And at that time, my background was in, accounting. So I was working in finance, I was working in banking, and coming from that to then wanting to do something on the creative side was obviously a whole new world to me, right? I always enjoy the creative process. I always liked, making videos or doing things, but I always done that on my phone. But I guess when you came up and you said, hey, I've been working with cameras, I do proper videos, I can teach you a little bit, and, we can go from there. So we decided to, pursue Q Filmz, and we started, working at it. We started getting project. We did our first wedding together.
Yeah.
Right. And that was funny because both of us, we weren't that experienced with, especially me. I was still pretty new with handling the the C100. I was very, very new at it. And then we went out to do this wedding, and that was a whole day of me just learning. And same thing with you. It's we're all both experiencing that. And then after that, when we started taking on multiple projects. We were doing music. I was doing music videos for you, and things like that. And I think going through that process, it started teaching me a lot about the creative side of things. Started teaching me a lot about how to shoot proper content, how to work the camera better, right? And then from there, we started working together.
Yeah.
And that's when I was at the bank. You came to me and you said, hey, there might be an opportunity for you if you want to hop ships. And as most people don't know, but when I came out of accounting, I never wanted to be an accountant. I just didn't think that was a path for me. And then from there, I was working in finance because I didn't really want to pursue an accounting job, right? I was telling people, I'm kind of applying, but I applied a few places, but there was nothing that was really coming out of it. I just didn't have my heart in it. And so I was working in finance, and then when the opportunity come to work together, I decided to take it, and then we started working together. And then that's where the whole Second Floor thing came in place.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to.
The Second Floor, actually, the name actually came about while we were setting up in the upstairs of this old office. It was half renovated. There was no heat.
Oh man.
It was just a really, really shitty office, but I kind of saw an opportunity there to create content, and I was itching to create content. And I was sitting one day talking to you, throwing ideas, and the idea of the podcast came about. And I was like, man, maybe we should do a podcast. Yeah. Maybe it might be a good idea.
Yeah.
And this was before podcasts even blew up. Like this was before right now everyone's starting a podcast, but before this was not even, this was before
2020, beginning of 2018. That's when we were like, because podcasts were still, obviously were going on for a while. It's just that, especially in our city in Edmonton, it wasn't like something that was on everybody's mind.
Everyone's radar. It was very low key. It wasn't really on anyone's radar. And then you kept going upstairs and downstairs, bringing the equipment, and I was just sitting there and I just kept seeing you keep going upstairs, and I don't know why, but the trigger of this metaphor of going to the next level triggered in my brain, and I was like, why don't we call this the second floor?
Yeah.
And I know you were at first reluctant about it. You're like, that's too simple.
Well, because when you said second floor, I was just kind of like, well, how would we want to do a podcast. And even before the podcast, we wanted to vlog. We wanted to do like a daily vlog.
We did.
We were inspired by Mr. Neistat, Casey Neistat, and we wanted to do something like that. And we did one episode of that where I pulled up on the car and I was like, hey, I'm looking for Omen. He said he's on the second floor.
Yo, so that brings back memories.
Yeah. So second floor was actually, it was kind of like the vlog that we wanted to do. And then, so that's why I was like reluctant. I was like, well, I think we want to start a vlog. I don't know if second floor makes sense. And then when we talked a little bit more, it kind of clicked. I was like, okay, maybe we can call it the second floor. And then do you remember the intro we made for it?
We
did. The elevator.
We spent a good little bit trying to make it super classy.
Super classy. Yeah, we had like an escalator going on. Yeah. We had people going on it, and we're like, yo, when the hand goes, we should have raised this. Like it was a very creative process that we went through.
I'll link that. If I find the video, I'll put it in for people to see.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I think we should have it. Probably it's in like the old files or whatever, but we'll have that. But that's where the birth of I guess the second floor podcast was kind of came about, right?
Yeah.
And then I think we didn't really take it into the podcast route until Kenny came on board.
Yeah.
Because then you reached out to me and then you said, hey, I've spoken with Kenny Bolar, and I was like, oh, I actually know him because me and Kenny, we did some stuff back in the day together. And when the whole kind of thing started coming together, we're like, okay, let's start actual podcast. And then I remember me, you, and Kenny did a intro episode of the podcast, and we had no idea what we were doing, bro.
No.
We had no. I remember we were still trying to set up the back end of it, and I was trying to figure out how to get it on all the platforms. It was a journey. It was something that kind of made us understand how these things work. And by the time we kind of started getting into it, I had my breakdown. You know, I was at that point where I was just kind of I didn't know what to focus on, because at that time we did have multiple projects.
Honestly, bro, we were running and gunning.
Yeah.
At that time, we were working so much. I remember we were working evenings and weekends.
Yeah.
Not just with our full-time jobs, but then with Q Filmz, running around for Q Filmz and running around for Second Floor, trying to get that set up. We were trying to, we were doing so many projects at the time, and things started piling up. And then I guess, you can speak a bit about that.
And obviously for me, from my perspective at that time, you're right. We had a full-time job that we were doing. Then we were working on Q Filmz. We were trying to build that. And then we brought on Second Floor. We were trying to do that. And then at the same time, I was trying to still do my own stuff. Like how you have Qashus, I had Gains Talk, and I was still trying to figure out where I was trying to take my own kind of little brand, what I wanted to do with that. And that was a point in my life where I was probably at my lowest. And I think you've seen me. You've seen me at my low. Yeah. And because of everything that was being added onto the plate, I knew my commitment level to you guys wouldn't be there. So I remember I had a conversation with you and I said, listen, man, I think me doing Second Floor right now just doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Because, I almost felt like I would be sitting and talking to people that maybe have achieved something in life, or maybe are going through, their own journey or figuring their own stuff out. But I wasn't internally where I wanted to be. I'm still a work in progress. But at that time, I was at my lowest. And I just felt like it wouldn't be right for me to sit there and interview people when mentally I'm not even working on myself. I'm not even actually pushing myself to the limit. So because of that, I really wanted to take a step back, and it almost felt like a loss because it was something like me and you, we were very excited about in the beginning, then bringing on Kenny on board, and we were seeing that momentum being built in the beginning. We were already like 10, 15 episodes in when I was kind of like, yo, like, I don't know if this is what I want to do right now.
Yeah.
And then taking a step back from that, the whole purpose of that was, and I think even till this day, I think some people still think I'm part of Second Floor Podcast, which is funny because like sometimes people will reach out to me, they're like, oh, or if they haven't seen me for a while and they'll see me like out somewhere and they'll be like, oh, like I really love what you're doing with the podcast, and I was like, yo, like I haven't been on there for like a year or more, right? So, but it's just like, at that time, I knew I needed to take a step back to just focus internally on myself, because internally, like mentally, emotionally, I was like a mess. And I think touching a little bit on that, like, I guess from your perspective, you've seen me kind of hit rock bottom essentially, right? Like you had to, yeah. So if you
I felt like, at the time, and, people don't know this, but, at the time, even now, I'm still the same way, super hungry to have very large ambitions.
Yeah.
And I kind of, tried to get you excited in the projects that we were doing, running with Q Filmz, learning. And at the same time we were learning. That's the biggest thing. Like people, you don't know what you're doing technically, but you're very excited about what you want to learn and do. Yeah. So, learning making sure that we're doing our jobs properly, Monday to Friday, then trying to learn how to put a business together, then try to put a podcast together or some sort of content together, then on my end do music, but also for you doing the fitness and building your brand. I get how things started. It was chaotic, but for me at the time, I needed that, because before in certain cases before that, I was sitting in limbo. So me not working on something all the time, and the time that I had free gave me anxiety. Like it was very angry. I was like, man, if I'm not working, I'm not doing anything, and then I feel like I'm unproductive. But for you on that end, it kind of we went from not doing much to all of a sudden we're doing 3, 4, 5 different projects at the same time, which kind of through maybe even, I get it, because at that time you're doing all these things, but then you don't understand essentially why you're doing it and where you're headed. It kind of gets lost in the chaos of it all.
And I think we had multiple conversations. I remember around those times we would sit in the office and we'll have discussions about the direction we want to go. We would talk about why we're doing all of this, right? And I think that started making more sense for me, because and it's a good point, because a lot of times, especially at our age, and I think in one of your recent episodes with Kenny, you talked about like you're ambitious. We're ambitious. We're all ambitious people. We're all young. We're all hungry. We're living in a city that's just on the come up. A lot of things are happening, and we all kind of want to figure out where we fit in. Yeah. Right. Like, what is our thing? And because of that, since we were doing too much, I was just feeling lost almost, where I was like, man, like I'm doing podcasts, I'm doing, Q Filmz, I'm understanding a business side of things on that. And then I'm working for an agency, marketing agency. That's also, we were still small at that point. And as you know, I was wearing multiple hats in that field as well. So I wasn't only doing videos in that, I was like doing project management, talking to people, like I was just managing multiple things. And I just started feeling so much pressure as to trying to please everyone. And I felt like I wasn't taking the time to step back and focus on the things I wanted to focus on, and I think that's where the disconnect happened when you're very ambitious and you're young, because you want to do everything and you want to get to the point where you are involved in all the projects, because you want to, you not only for the friendship side of things where you want to be, cool with everybody, but also just to have that almost that bragging right where you're like, man, I'm doing, I'm like a multitasker, like I take pride in that, right? And I think because there was all of that was adding on to me, I didn't feel like my foundation was strong enough to handle all that, because I didn't have, like we said, I didn't have the direction right. I didn't know where all of this was taking me. And when we would have those conversations back in the office about the direction, about where we want to go, it started becoming more clear to me that at the end of the day, I want to do something for myself, right? At the end of the day, I want to do something that allows me to be purposeful and allows me to give back to the people I want to give back to. Because, you know, we all have our own story. We all go through our own, you know, not traumas, but like almost, you know, our own challenges in life, our own obstacles. And I feel like, you know, my story is different than your story, right? But that gives me my almost kind of juice of where I want to take my life and what I want to do with it. So because of Second Floor, because of Q Filmz, because of Magnolias, all of those things just were adding onto my plate. And I felt like it was taking me away from my purpose, which essentially I want to get to a point where I am able to speak to people and help them and coach them and do things, right? Through either personal training or through, you know, sitting down one-on-one and figuring out how I can help them. So that's the purpose. That's where I wanted to take my life. And I just felt like at that point, the direction of the things we were doing weren't going to actually propel me in that direction.
Yeah.
So
no, I felt that. I felt that when we were, you know, working on the projects, and, you know, I got frustrated that one day. I still remember that day because that was the day where everything kind of turned. And it's because I was sitting in the office on a Sunday. Yeah. You know, all day, the entire day I was working on the pod, and you weren't there, and, you know, Kenny wasn't there, and I ended up saying, you know what, guys, like, you guys need to make a decision. You know, we had another guy in it as well, and we had to make a decision. I said, guys, like, this isn't, I'm not going to carry everyone in this. Yeah. I don't want to carry everyone in this. Either you're going to do it with us, or you're not. Yeah. I needed to come and put that ultimatum forth. And actually, you know, it was good that I did that, because now it started to kind of click with everyone that, okay, like, you know, like, everyone has their role, and if they can't fulfill that, then it's okay to take a step back, and I'm okay with that. I was okay with that when you stepped away from Q Filmz. I was okay with that. When you stepped away from Second Floor, I was okay with that. I wanted to make sure that I'm not the one carrying this. I want to lead this, but I don't want to be carrying someone who doesn't want to be in the project, for sure. and in the shit, because during that time it was shit. We were 10-15 episodes in. Now it's work. Now it's like, are you going to show up, or are you going to not? And so we needed those conversations.
And a lot of times, I think that goes off for anyone, I guess, anyone who's listening. It's like when you start a project, a lot of times the commitment issues happen is because your expectations weren't right from the beginning. And I've learned that over this past years. Like, if I get into something and I don't set the expectations right of like what is actually going to require for me to achieve the result I want to achieve, I'm not going to stay committed to it for long. And that happened with Second Floor. That was a prime example of that, right? Because when we started, it was just kind of like, okay, we'll do this on Sundays, right? Like, it'll just be like a one-day thing. We'll do that. But at that time, now you've perfected the art of that, right? Like, now you've told me you just work, you know, on Sundays, your Second Floor day. But at that time, I guess we weren't able to think that far ahead of like how to structure our days like that, where it's like only one day, because it was spilling over to other days. And I was just feeling like, okay, well, you know, I want to spend tonight working on this thing, but now it's like this thing is coming up and this. So what I learned from that experience was essentially, if I don't set my expectations right from the very beginning of how much work it's actually going to require to do this from A to Z, I'm not going to stay committed to it. And then I started applying that in other parts of my life, where it's like, whatever I do now, I like to set my expectations right. Like, okay, if this is the project I'm taking on, it's going to require 20 hours a week for it to be anything. And if I can commit to those 20 hours a week, then I'm like, okay, this is something I can do. Yeah. So at that time, I feel like we didn't have our expectations right. We were just thinking like, okay, this is just a fun thing. We're gonna have a bunch of people on, like, you know, we're gonna be the podcast out of Edmonton, and that was like the dream. But we didn't have the work. And then when you brought up I still remember that day, you were pretty pissed, and I apologize for that, because that's when I decided, I was like, you know what, if I can't give you my 100%, and if I can't actually commit to this, and I'm just kind of like hanging around, because that almost becomes a problem then, right? If somebody is just kind of slanging around and not carrying their weight, that is a problem. That hinders the amount of success you can have with it, right? So because you have somebody who's not carrying their weight, and now you got to lead the podcast, you got to do everything, and then now you also got to carry them. So it actually hinders, the success of the project, of any project. So when you had that conversation with the team, and you brought that up, it was just kind of like, okay, I need to make a decision of what's more important to me right now and what do I need to focus on, because I can't be unfair to you or Kenny or to anyone. Whether it was with Q Filmz or Second Floor, it was just like I had to take that L, and I almost treated it as like an L, right? It was like almost a loss for me to be like, I'm going to quit on something that I was very passionate about. Like I'm going to quit on something that I really wanted to do. But I knew at that time that if I did not quit on those specific projects, I wouldn't be where I am mentally today.
Yeah.
And so now looking back, it's almost kind of like a win-loss situation, right? Like I lost, you guys, I lost working on this project together, but I was able to win an other side of life where now I feel I feel mentally stronger.
Yeah, and I told you that from the get was I don't want you to feel like you have to do this. And I know because we're friends and we're brothers that sometimes we do it for the sake of doing it for our friends. Yeah. We do it for, you know what, we started this, I can't back out now. Yeah. Right. So I didn't want, and I really made that clear during that time. I wanted to make it clear that time after we had, some conflict. But I feel good now. I feel like both of us are in a good space mentally where we want to go. And I think that you have more of a clear direction of what you want to do.
Yeah, so. I do. And just touching back on, doing things to please people. That's something I think going through this whole experience with work, with our full-time jobs, with Second Floor, with Q Filmz, and multiple other projects that I've done in the past, I've learned that anytime you do something where you're doing it to please others, and I think we had this one conversation back in the day where I told you that, like, I feel like I'm doing all of this right now to make you guys happy. Because to me, it was just like, you helped me in the beginning of understanding some of this stuff, right? Opening up that door for me to come work and things like that. And thank you for that, by the way. But I felt like I almost had to do everything at this point to make sure that you're happy. So whether it was with Q Filmz or Second Floor, I just had to figure out a way. But what it was costing me was my own mental health in terms of how I would feel every morning about what I'm about to do today. Like I would just wake up. I wouldn't have time for gym because, I went to bed late the night before. Whatever chaos that was happening at that time, I felt like I had to just maintain it and figure it out because I couldn't let you down, right? And what that taught me is that for anybody out there is like, if you're doing something to please other people, you're setting yourself up for failure. There's a gray area there. Like there's to a certain extent, you can do something to help out or to make someone happy. But when you start doing things to really please other people and you're just doing it because you don't want to let them down and you're letting yourself down in the process, that's the worst thing you can do. Because the only reason I hit rock bottom mentally was because of that. Because I was trying to do everything in my power to make sure everybody that I'm involved with is happy with me. And then I got to a point where I was just like, can I swear on here?
Of course.
Fuck that. Yeah. No, I got to the point where it was just like, fuck it. Like I need to just take a step back and I need to start focusing on what I said I wanted to do with my life. Mm-hmm. And that was essentially focusing on my fitness, because I've always been a believer of in fitness, but also in mental health, right? Like I feel like they go hand in hand. So because my physical, and you remember what I used to, what I was looking like at one point in my life. Yeah. And because I was, physically wasn't happy with how I looked, it was affecting my mental of how I would approach things. And because I was doing it from the perspective of trying to make everyone happy, I would just letting this side of my physical just go away. I wasn't even focused on that. I was gaining weight. I was eating whatever was in front of me. There was no sense of like loving myself at that point. It was just kind of like, what do I need to do to wake up the next day, be at the shoot, be at work, record the episode? Like, what do I got to do to make sure that these guys have what they need? Yeah. And I still felt like I wasn't able to provide that. And that's when we had that conversation, because I still wasn't able to actually provide you guys with what you guys were looking for.
I think the mistake that we made was I assumed your passion for this project was as high as mine, and that you would be able to get through it with the shit that would come.
Yeah.
You know, like we went through some shit, and even with Q Films, like my assumption was when we started, because even when we started, I would tell you, dude, like we have a shoot on this day. It's a Saturday night.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna come, like if you're serious about it,
Yeah.
I expect you to be there. You're gonna be there, and you were for the first 3, 4, 5 months. You came through. I taught you certain things of the cameras.
Yeah.
We came and we experienced those things, and we sat. We would spend every evening after work. I would come to CIBC, and we would grab a coffee, and we would sit, and we would scheme and plan. And I remember we were looking at many different options of different things of what to do, but during that time, my thought process was like, okay, man, like this guy is just as hungry as me. He wants to learn content. He wants to learn video, and the passion is growing on him. So there should be no issues down the road. It was my assumption, which was bad to assume, because I didn't know you that well enough at that point to be like, okay, to make that assumption. Right. And that's why even to this day, I've been doing the same thing since 2008, 2007, 2008, when I was making content. I had a video camera at that time. People if I can find the footage, I'll play it. But I had cameras at that time. It was 10 years ago. I'm still involved in doing the same things. So my passion for any of this content stuff is never going to go away. And so my assumption was like, oh, okay, Yousaf has that. Like, there's no way he's going to fuck up on the second floor. There's no way he's going to fuck up on Q Filmz, because he loves this shit just as much as I do. And I had that clear direction and purpose of like what I want to go for. And I assumed it was aligned with you, which was not the assumption I should have made. But at the end of the day, I'm just happy that, you are in a better state, because I wouldn't have been happy with myself at the same time. It was like, my partner is the guy that I'm doing business with, the guy that I'm running around with 7 days a week, is not in a good and healthy state. I never wanted that from the get. I figured, when shit hit the fan and, we had to have tough conversations, that you would be able to get through it and be in a space in your life where you're mentally strong enough to get through it and say, okay, it's okay. And we're still gonna go and do this. But it was good that we brought it back.
And for sure, man. I'm very glad we were able to be mature about it and have those discussions and realize, and you didn't hold me to a certain, kind of like fuck you for leaving and things like that. And I never had any bad intentions towards, messing up your projects. That was never like, I never wanted to back out because I was just like, you're going to get screwed. I was just hoping that you'll figure it out, because that's how you were always, right? And in terms of making the assumption of like, I was on the same, wave of like where we're taking this. See, I didn't know before I got into all of that in terms of creating content, I was doing that in the past as well, like on my pages, on Instagram, Facebook, things like that. So in terms of content, I always enjoyed. What I didn't know was the other side of like, when you start working with clients and you start, going through, like we understand the client side of things now. And I think that wasn't what I was passionate about. Right? Like in the beginning, we would, do our vlogs. We would do things that we were just kind of doing off, running the business and starting that. And it felt almost natural at that time, because we were so passionate about what we were doing. But then when we started getting into more of the client stuff and we're running around with the camera, see, never in my life I thought that I would be, a director or, a full-time videographer or something like that. Like that was just never my intention. That's not what I wanted to be. And when we started doing more of the projects with clients and going around and shooting weddings and things like that, I truly just didn't really have like a deep down passion for it. Like I couldn't see myself running around with a camera for the rest of my life. That's not who I wanted to be. So in terms of creating content, I always enjoyed that part. It's just, I feel like when it comes to with a lot of limitations of what you can do, and you gotta, please other people's vision of what they have, and all of that doesn't sit right with me. And essentially in a way, even for you, working with clients, there's that thing where you're just like, man, like you have no creative control because you have to please other people's vision. And I've just never been that. To me, I've never been that, right? So creating content for myself was okay. Creating content with friends and having fun was okay. But then doing it as like a full-time job, it's not something that sat right with me. In the beginning, when we were doing Q Filmz, I think the mistake we made is we both tried to do the same thing. Right? Like I'm more of like I enjoy the business operational side of things, right? Like I understand dealing with clients and stuff like that. But when it comes to like doing the work of like with the cameras and going, that was stressful for me, because that would add more stress on me, because I still wasn't pro enough. Like it wasn't something I would just, wake up and I know what to do. Like I would go to a new setting and I'm confused and I'm like kind of scared and I don't know what to do properly, right?
Yeah,
So,
wow.
and because we were again, that was a learning lesson for us.
But
and
it wasn't even based on the fact, like my assumption was because you said that you wanted to do it, right? You said you wanted to, learn the cameras and learn how to shoot video because it was going to help down the road with even with your content. So my assumption was that, okay, well, you do want to learn this at the same time, have that passion for it. And again, making it in terms of like, you always connect the dots looking backward.
Exactly. Yeah. And looking backward, I realized obviously that it wasn't I was passionate about like, oh, I want to like shoot videos for forever. It was like from the understanding of like, okay, if I understand this stuff, then I can better apply it to creating better content for whatever I do in life, And it going back to, I guess, like you making that assumption again, I maybe there were certain things I might have said, or certain things that would have happened that led you to have that assumption. And I get it. In the beginning, we were both passionate about what we were doing and we wanted to just pursue it. But then when things started getting onto my plate, especially when we were working together at our full-time jobs, that's when it became, almost like impossible. Because I felt like then it was like almost like we're doing that in the day, then we're also doing that in the night, and I'm just always running out with the camera. And then I also have to learn how to be a project manager. I have to learn how to deal with clients. I have to learn how to understand, some Excel stuff. Like it was just stuff started to get on my plate that wasn't supposed to be there when we started. Right? Like when we started doing Q Filmz, a lot of the stuff that got on my plate that year was not even in our peripherals. Like we weren't even thinking about that stuff. So as that started happening, I guess it just started leading us into a direction where it started taking away a lot of time from us.
Yeah, there was a lot of chaos. And again, I had the assumption that you were on the same wavelength as me, and again, that's fine. Looking backwards, we're all different. We all have our different paths, and it's good to know that early on, before we actually started something that was like super crazy big. Like if we figured it out 3 years into Q Filmz or 4 years into Q Filmz, and now you're not mentally well, you're not in it, then it would be a lot harder to be like, okay, you can just take a step back and leave, versus when you're in the beginning stages of something. When you took a step back, it wasn't like it took a hit on me or it took a hit on what we were doing. It was more of like, okay, it was a mutual agreement. Like, okay, you know what? This is better for both of us. Okay, it's cool. We're always going to remain friends. We're always going to remain.
Of course.
Right?
So, and I think that was like in the beginning, that was like a big concern for me, because I just felt like, man, me leaving all this stuff, like how would that affect our relationship? And I feel like at the end of the day, we still have best intentions for each other, and we're just kind of doing different things, but still same things, I guess, right? Like we're still pursuing the same hustle, same grind, and I guess that's always good to have, we're all from the same city essentially, and I was having this conversation with someone the other day where it's like the city's too small, like we're all, especially all our age, like we know multiple guys that are doing same things we want to do, like creating content, want to kind of get their niche and stuff like that. And the good part is we're all kind of somewhat in different niches, but we're all still kind of like in the same competitive environment. We're all trying to get to a certain level, and I think that somehow it becomes like who's going to do it, essentially. But at the same time, I think we all have love for each other as to where we're going and what we want to do.
Mostly, yeah. I mean, there's the odd apple here and there that we don't deal with, but of course, the city's small enough where when we talked about this, where everyone can win.
Yeah,
Everyone
There's
can,
exactly. I truly believe that.
Yeah.
I'm truly at that point mentally, and I'm very when I talk about mental health, like I'm not, again, like there's people who've been through a lot difficult situations than I probably have been. So when maybe I'm not like an expert in like mental health, but I do realize what depression is. I do understand the anxiety, and I think we all feel it to a certain extent. And growing up, it's a funny thing. Growing up, I was always question people who would talk about depression, because I went through, like, although I didn't have like a amazing like fairy tale childhood, but it was just kind of like I just never had this whole notion of depression, because I would just always face life with like, yeah, I'll figure it out, I'll go through it, I'll figure it out, whatever, yeah, I'll deal with it, right? So the whole depression thing and was never like an issue for me until I became this age. Now I'm like 27, and you start realizing how much stuff gets put on you, and the mistakes you've made in the past and things you're trying to overcome, and all of that, it actually the cause of depression, because you're thinking about things you can't change. So going through that, and then having this whole mental problem of like understanding of like, okay, how do I deal with certain situations, how do I overcome certain challenges, I'm at that point now where I'm able to look back and say, you know what, I'm at a happy place now mentally, right? And because of that, I'm able to think back and say there's enough success for everyone. Like everybody can have it. Everybody can have it. It's not going to come from me. And that's something Gary Vee talks about a lot about as well, where he says that have empathy for people, right? Like understand that they might be going through something that you have no idea about, or they have a different perspective on how they experience life and whatever the case is. But when you come from that place of empathy, and you're kind of like, you know what, they're fighting their own battle, I'm fighting my own battle, but there's enough success for everyone. Everybody can win at the end of the day. And I think in the beginning, or even last year, I was feeling almost like if other people are doing it, I got to compete with them because they're taking away from me. Right? That's how I was feeling. And it was a scary place, because it's not the way to think. And for anybody out there who's listening, it's like, if you are in a place where you're feeling like you're competing with everybody, you're going to lose. It's good to have competitive spirit. It's good to be competitive. But you have to compete against the fact that you're just trying to build your own path. If that's what you're doing, if that's the industry you're in, or if that's the route you're taking with your life, you just have to have that you versus you mentality. And now I talk a lot about that, where it's like, I'm fighting my own battle. I'm dealing with my own obstacles. You're dealing with your own obstacles. You're dealing with your own challenges. And we're all going to win if you keep pushing, but your win is not going to come from my win. My win is coming from a different place, the universe, where there's enough abundance in universe to go around for everybody.
Yeah.
So I hope that message gets across to a lot of people, and I actually want to push that message out more. And I feel like I'm not doing a good enough job at it right now, but I need to do on my platform, I'm not doing a good enough job of pushing this message out. But I want to have more people hear it, where it's like, you can still win. There's enough abundance in the universe. And when you come from that abundance mindset, everything becomes easy. You understand that it's just you versus you.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. And I think I'm glad that you are where you are mentally, because I wouldn't have been happy with how things were going. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't happy. We needed to have that space.
Yeah.
And you figuring out what direction you wanted to take. And I feel like you're a lot more passionate with what you're doing right now. What you're going in with Gainstalk and the fitness brand, and we've already talked about what you're planning to do.
Yeah.
I think that is a lot. I can tell, like, there's a sparkle in your eye when you talk about it. There's the videos you create on your own, like the way you talk about fitness, like you talk about fitness like I talk about video.
Yeah.
You talk about fitness like like exactly, like that's what I'm.
Yeah.
And so it's good that you found that.
Yeah.
Now it's just a matter of continuing doing what you're doing. And I feel like
honing it.
We have multiple hustles that we're doing, and life throws us multiple things in our way. And it's a matter of how are you going to maneuver it, and what choices are you going to make? We're both 27.
Yeah.
I just turned 27.
Happy belated.
Happy belated. So if anyone wants to give me a happy birthday, now is the time.
Yeah.
But
contact me for gift and
I'll send you my mailing address. But I think at a certain point, you just have to realize like you need to stick with a direction.
Yeah.
With whatever you're doing and be okay with it. Right. I feel like there is a certain time where you can go with the flow.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, you know, kind of meander until they're 35, 40.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's too late to do that side hustle that they wanted to start. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's too late. You can start whenever.
Yeah.
But in terms of like really figuring it out, I think being by yourself, and I talked about this in the previous episode, being by yourself, being alone in a room, being in your thoughts and being okay in your thoughts is very difficult.
Yeah.
Right. Especially with this whole mental health thing, people are struggling a lot.
Oh,
but
man, it's
understanding how to be by yourself and not
Yeah.
being anxious, figuring it out, visualizing, meditating, thinking about, and not being anxious about the future, because anxiety comes from the fact of the unknown.
The
right?
unknown,
Right? You don't know where you're going to take your life. And of course, life, you never know. Life will throw you a curveball. But the matter is that you have to have a purpose in the direction, in your daily direction. You know, taking it, okay, I'm going to go, my plan is to go to X. Okay, now and that is my purpose. Okay, now you have a purpose. Now you have a why. And so no matter what curveballs come in between that, you're still kind of going in that direction, right? You're still kind of moving towards that direction. But if you don't have that, the one curveball that life throws your way, you're going to be swayed and you're going to be thrown into something completely different. And I think that's where people lack, is they avoid thinking about that, because that causes anxiety. Like, I want to be there. And it's unknown and it's very high up, and I don't know where that's gonna. How am I gonna get there? That causes anxiety. I actually don't want to think about that. You know what? Let's go out and have a drink with my homie.
Yeah, let's do something that's easy.
Let's do something that's easy. You know what? I can think about that on Monday.
Exactly.
You know what? I want to go there.
Yeah.
I just want to have a drink and hang out with my buddies for now. And that continues to happen until you're 35, 40, and then shit hits the fan, and you're like, man, I didn't spend the time to think about that for a couple days. I didn't spend the time to really plan out my life. And obviously you can't plan it out entirely, but having that purpose will allow you to go through the shit, will allow you to go through the chaos, no matter what comes in your way.
And I just want to say, like, we are very lucky if we actually like take a step back and think. Not a lot of people are able to, first of all, even fathom what you just said. Like, in terms of mindset wise, like, we're very lucky to always been on that mindset where we think a little different than many people, because at the end of the day, we understand that the direction, we understand like where we want to go. And lucky for us is we had the opportunities at our young, like at early 20s, mid 20s, to try out different things. You know, like, we wouldn't have known a lot of the stuff we do now if we didn't try out different hustles. I feel like I wouldn't have found it a little better direction with my life. Like, I'm still figuring that part out, and I call it the journey. And I'm trying to figure that out as I go along. But we were very lucky because we did hustle a lot in our early 20s. You know, we did try different things. You know, we did start different projects. We did do a lot of that. And now that we're getting it out of our system, we're able to we're able to build a better direction of where we want to go, or build a better path and a better understanding of where we're trying to go with our life. And there's still going to be times now where, you know, that's a good topic for us to talk about, is like opportunities, right? Like, everywhere you look, because we think a little different than a lot of people, we're able to spot opportunities a little differently, right? We're able to spot them a little quicker than maybe other people might. So because of that, when we're looking at opportunities, it actually is a blessing, but it's also like a curse, because it starts taking us in multiple directions. We start getting distracted almost, especially at this age still. We're like, you know, we see something that comes up and we're like, oh man, you know, this could be another way we could, you know, create income or create a content, or whatever the case is, right? And we start getting distracted by it. So what do you usually do to like to manage that now at this point? Right. I'll tell you a little bit about me, but what do you do now?
Well, for me, I see in anything, there's an opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah.
You could look at something and I might not see the opportunity, but you might.
Yeah.
Right. But I feel like that is the entirety of things, is you can look at anything and look at opportunity and say, okay, yeah, if I go that route. For example, TikTok. You hopped on the TikTok train. I didn't. Yes, I know that there's an opportunity there, but if I hopped on that TikTok train, now the things that I'm making on my evenings and weekends would be hindered because now I'm trying to build a TikTok fan base. Right. And that's at the beginning stage. And I consciously made the decision not to do it because I'm like, yo, like, yes, there is. Yes, there's potential, but is it right for where I need to do and what I need to create right now? No, it's definitely not. And I don't want to spend an ounce of time trying to build another platform on there. But what I do is I always constantly remind myself, like, what my purpose is. And my purpose has always been to be an entertainer. I feel like I've always said that in my head. I've always wanted to be one. I've always wanted to, and that's why I do the music stuff. I've done the skits. I've done every piece of content you can think of. I've done it. At this point in my life, I've done since 2007. I have done it. And I realize that that's my purpose, and that's what drives me to create the podcast. That's what drives me to whenever you have a long day at work, and it's been 10 hours, and people shit on you, and people quote me spit on you. That's happened physically before. And you think about, man, why am I in this? Why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? I think about, okay, I'm gonna get to that point. And I have to, and also my family motivates me. You know, my family, we come from a middle class generation. My family has always hustled and gritted and grinded for what they've built for themselves. And my dad and my parents are entrepreneurs. My parents have a business and they've had it for 25 years.
And
but they gritted. They ate shit every day to get to where they are. And they have, we're somewhat comfortable now. But I look at that and I'm like, man, I cannot take my foot off the pedal especially because I have the opportunity to do it. I have an opportunity to build this podcast. I have to do it. I have an opportunity to build my videos. I have to do it. Build my skill, get those opportunities because my father sacrificed his entire life for me to have that. It would almost be a disservice for me not to do it, not to spend my evenings and weekends, not to spend all night editing, not to spend all night working. So I think about that. I'm like, I can't let my family down because not working, not hustling would be a disservice to my family. And if I disservice my family, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. And then number two is, where's that purpose?
But it almost makes it harder though, right? Because for you, it's like it's hard. Like even my parents, like they still don't know what I really do. Like they like I'm not an accountant. Like my dad sometimes still confused. Like I went to school for accounting. Why am I not an accountant? Why don't I have my CPA yet? Like he's still confused about that, right? So I think even for you, it's like the same thing where it's like you're doing things that are so non-traditional in where we come from, essentially, that our parents look at us and they just go like, man, what are you doing? Like, what? So it's hard to like even impress them, right? Like sometimes I joke about it where it's like, I just want my dad to say I'm proud of you, like that's still a thing where I'm hoping to hear one day, right? But it's because we come from a different background, different culture background, it's hard for our parents to understand that. So to them, you still feel like you don't get the support of them like you should. Like they're not there for you like you would want, like you see sometimes you see movies, right? You see the parent is just like Coach Carter, right? Like the dad is there, Pursuit of Happiness, the dad is there, he's teaching his sons the right thing, right? But our parents, it's like, it's not their fault, it's just that they come from a different culture. So to them, it's like if we were accountants or if we were doctors and we were working day and night, they would be like so happy. They would be like super proud of us, right? But now we're still working day and night, but it's just that we're doing something that's so out of the box, out of the ordinary, out of something that they haven't seen before. It's a little confusing to them. So we don't get that 100% support from them yet, but I can see why we try so hard, because we know we want to get to a place where, they do see us as success. They do see us.
I've said this from the get. My whole dream is to one day get a key the keys to a nice Rolls Royce, keys to a nice house, and just give it to my parents.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that's every immigrant, like all with that picture, like
that's the picture. That would be the picture perfect moment.
Yeah,
I would probably break down in that moment, but that would be the picture perfect moment. Be like, okay, I've made it. You bring
out your mom, and there's a car with the ribbon on it, and it's
there you
hers,
go.
and
that's yours, and I'm not even. I'm at a place where I can give that.
Yeah, and it's like paid for, mom. You don't have to worry about like there's no payments, nothing. You just go drive, and you let me know what you need. Yeah. And I think getting to that point, like realistically, when you take a step back and you look at the grand scheme of things, like that's a very far-fetched moment, and that's sometimes what anxiety comes in, because you feel like that's still so far. Because sometimes I think about it, I'm like, man, what would it be like when I can just buy my parents a new house and it's all paid for? Like when that moment happens, right? But when you actually think about it, that doesn't happen until you have created multiple sources of income, because it's cash flow, right? Like you can't go and buy a house and it's all paid for, whatever the case is, until you have lots and lots of cash. So to get to that point, it requires a lot of energy. But I think that's where, again, the anxiety part comes in, because you almost feel like that's not going to happen next year. That's not going to happen in 6 months from now, right? That's like a 5-year out, 10-year out goal. Yeah. But the problem sometimes happens is we look at people who's already done it, or, we see their success now, because when we were growing up, we didn't have access to their social media. We didn't have Instagram. We didn't have Facebook. So we didn't get to see their journey of what they were like when they were like us. And because we missed out on that crucial part, we didn't get to see what it was like when they were like us. And now we see them, Cardones and Gary V's of the world, and we see them now and we're like, man, I want to get there. I want to get there tomorrow. And the patient lacks.
Yes.
Right. And I feel like that a lot of times, where it's like, I need it. I want whatever I want in life to happen faster than I feel like it's going to happen. And it's a very hard road to travel, because again, you feel a little lonely, right? Like you feel like you don't have, your parents are not really there for you, especially in the route we have taken. A lot of the other people don't understand what the fuck you're doing. Your friends that went to high school or universities with you, and they already have their career set, and you're still fucking making TikToks. Like you're at that point where people don't realize from the outside of what you're dealing with or what you're trying to accomplish. And then you get to the point where it's like it starts affecting your patience. Like you're like, man, I want this tomorrow. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, you just have to understand that it's going to take time no matter what. You're not going to get there fast.
And the fact of being, again, I bring this back to the last episode or one of the previous episodes, being okay with being alone, being okay with being what you need to do and being and doing it alone. Like when I started the video stuff, I was on my own in the basement, YouTube videos. I was studying biology for 40 hours a week, 50, 60 hours a week. And then I'd spend my evenings and weekends figuring out, okay, how to edit, how to make my videos better, watching other YouTubers, experimenting, testing, like trying these things in order to figure it out. But I was alone. There was nobody holding me accountable on anything. And that's the thing, is like going back to that. It's like you have to be able to be okay with being alone and figuring it out on your own. And I feel like we try to bring attachments. We try to attach to other people around us to give us that moral support or give us, or even, start a podcast. Okay, I want to do it with my homies, right? Because it's fun and it's good. But really, it's like almost like a safe bet, because now you bring your homie in on this project, and now it's like we're homies, so it's all good. But now it's like, okay, if I don't do it, he's gonna do it. Right? Like you kind of get able to like lean on each other. But I feel like if you're not in a good emotional state, mental state, that leaning is bad, right? It's not in a place
of actually affects the project. Like we said earlier, it hinders the project.
It hinders the project, man. And you can't do something when someone is you're always constantly looking for that. You can't.
Initiative. You're looking for that initiative.
You have to be on your own, and you have to figure it out on your own. And if you do it with somebody, that person has to be able to carry not only their weight but then some. So that it's not a burden at that point, right?
I recently just did a video where I talked about the journey, and then essentially it led back to there was a video that was circling, I think last week on internet, of Will Smith, where he talked about how the journey is lonely and in the beginning nobody believes in you. And so what I was referring to is like being in this point right now where we feel that at like
a visceral level.
Yeah, at like we actually feel it, because it's like you want the support of everybody, and again, everybody might have good intentions for you, they have nothing against you, but you just kind of like, sometimes, especially as content creators, like I feel like that. I don't know if anybody else feels this way sometimes, but you post something and how long it took, right? Like how long it actually took you to make that project or make that piece of content. Then you put it out in the world, right? And you're expecting everybody that knows you to just support you. Everybody that knows you, you want them to share, you want them to do all that. But when Will Smith was talking about it, that you have to have that believe in yourself, because in the beginning, nobody's going to believe in you, right? So when I make my, TikTok videos or my fitness videos, or where a video where I'm talking, or I'm, talking about a habit or something like that, obviously I want everybody to share, I want everybody to support, but that doesn't mean that they have bad intentions for me. They're just not doing it because they're so busy with multiple other pieces of content that they're consuming. And there's ton shit of fucking content out there. There's so much content out there now for everybody. And it's not even their fault that they're not able to support you, or they're not able to even watch, because they might not even see your stuff because they're watching multiple other things, right? So when you get to, when you're producing, when you're creating, you just, again, it goes back to being lonely. You have to be okay with that, because you're going to be lonely for a long time, until you get to the point where you start building momentum, until you get in your groove, and then the puzzle is going to start getting filled. But the beautiful part about that is what I think is, when that puzzle starts getting filled, it's going to be filled with the right people. And that's what you need at the end anyways. You need the right support. You don't need everybody in the beginning. You just need the right people.
Dude, you hit it on the spot. I also want to say that, me and you have been able to, over the last so many years, been able to dabble in certain projects and do certain things. I think that dabbling too much is also a hindrance. Getting into too many projects is a hindrance. Looking at everything as an opportunity can be a hindrance.
And that's what I was saying, looking at opportunities, how do you, I guess, if you were to tell that to somebody who's young watching this right now, and they're like, all this opportunity is coming my way, how do you manage that to a point where because we can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. So when you see an opportunity and you haven't tested it out yet, how do you know this is not the right opportunity?
You have to be, for me, you have to be stubborn. When I look at Kobe, I remember Kobe, there's a story that his high school counselor told him, his high school counselor made a joke that, you're playing basketball, but you're not going to make the NBA.
Okay.
You're one out of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of kids in this country. And as a 17-year-old kid, that could kill your dreams, right? If Kobe wasn't as stubborn of a kid as he was, he wouldn't be where he is. And he talks about that. He talks about being stubborn with what you're doing. And I feel like we've had many years of experimentation. Now is the time to be stubborn with it. Right? It's a matter of saying, okay, what do I want to do? How am I going to get there? And being okay with eating shit for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and going that way, and saying, if any opportunity else comes my way, I'm not hopping the ship because I see a golden nugget. Right? It's easy to look at another ship and see another golden nugget and hop on there. Right? So even with the whole TikTok thing, we're in this space every single day. We work with clients every single day for social media and video. You see things. You see a pattern of things. You see platforms coming up and down all the time. Did I hop on it? No. And it's a simple fact of saying, okay, be stubborn with what you're building, because the platform you're building is not connected with TikTok. TikTok is not going to benefit Second Floor Podcast or what I'm doing.
Agree.
Right? If there's a platform that's going to help accelerate, or it's a thing that you need to get on because it's going to accelerate your brand or business or whatever the case, and you have the time, you have the resources to do it. But if you're a one-man show and you're trying to get on everything,
you can't.
Good luck, man. At the end of the day, you're not going to build something sustainable, right? Those the biggest influencers, the biggest YouTubers, they started on one platform first, and they built it for 5 years. Casey made vlogs for 5 years until he was at 12, 13, 14 million subscribers.
Yeah,
He didn't hop on Instagram. He didn't hop on Facebook and make videos for Facebook. He didn't.
No.
Right? So that's when I say be stubborn with it.
Yeah.
Be fucking stubborn with it, man. Like it's going to take time to build that, but you have to be stubborn in the terms of like daily vlogs for 5 years every single day, like Casey. Dude, that's tough.
Like you have to and again, that goes back to the commitment part. Like before you start any project, you have to understand what it's going to take to actually make it successful. And what happens is we commit to the project, we commit to the end result, but we don't commit to the actions. And I lacked that my whole life in the beginning, right? Like a lot, even in school, like I was committed to like getting a degree, but I wasn't committed to the actions that would require for me to have honors, right? Like I was never like a 4.0 kid. And a lot of people like feel like that, or like me, or like us, like we're not like, you know, super book smart. Because I don't know what your GPA, I don't know if I want to put you on spot.
Don't expose me like that.
Okay. Mine wasn't that bad, but like, you know, it was in threes, let's just say that. But high threes, or low threes, let's low threes. Okay. So, but essentially, we go through a lot of this other stuff, and because we're not like book smart, we're not doing things the traditional way, we don't commit to those projects fully because our heart's not in it from the beginning, or we're just in it for a different reason. So going back to whether Q Filmz, Second Floor, or any of the other projects we've done in life, I feel like I would always commit to the end result, or just the project, or the people. You know, sometimes it would be for the people. Like I committed to certain things because I wanted to work with you, or I wanted us to be closer, or whatever the case was. But committing to the action is a whole different thing, and not a lot of people do that in all areas of life. That requires, you know, whether you're doing physical, mental, spirit, even physical, right? Like we want a good body.
Yeah.
But what are you committing to in terms of actions for that body? Are you willing to go to the gym every day? Are you willing to eat clean, right? And even it depends what your goals are too then in that case. Like my goal, like there's a picture of Arnold there. I have the same picture in my room. Just says conquer. Love it. But Arnold is a bodybuilder. My goal in fitness is never to be like Arnold, right? Because I know if I want to be that, I have to drop everything and I have to commit to the action that man put in the gym for next 10 years to get there, or next 5 years to get there. But if I'm not willing to commit to the action that's required for me to get there, then that can't be my goal. Because if I say that that's my goal and I'm committing to the result of that, or to the end result, but I'm not committing to the action, then I'm going to get distracted. Something's going to hit me and I'm going to jump ship because I know I'm not committed to that action. So from anything you start, from anything you do, if you commit to the action from the very beginning, then I think you actually see it to success. And I think you did that with Second Floor. Like, look, you guys, how many episodes are now? 50 plus?
Past 50 now, yeah.
So you're at 50 plus episodes in, it's been a year, and you've gone from starting in that old shitty office that we were in to having the fucking jungle space vibe, you know, like yeah. that's committing to the action, right? Yeah. Like that's the prime example of that. So if I'm starting something, or if I want to do something and I'm not committed to the action that's going to require, whether it's building a business, whether it's starting a podcast, fitness, whatever it is in life, even spiritual, right? Like if I want to be more spiritual in my life, I have to commit to the action. For us Muslim people, that's 5 times a day prayer, right? Like that's the action I have to commit to, but I'm not there yet. I haven't committed to those 5 times, but I know I still want to be on that journey. So I'm committing to what I can. I'm just not committing to like, oh, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to be a full on, you know, an imam or something, right? Yeah. Like that's not what I'm committing to. I'm just committing to being better daily. And one of my mantras is improve daily, right? Like that's something I really believe in.
Plug it.
Improve daily hashtag. No, I'm kidding. But that's my mentality now. It's like every day I wake up, I just want to improve a little bit, whether it's for spiritual reasons, whether it's for mental, financial, physical, whatever it is. As long as I'm improving daily, I know I will get to that end result over the next 5-10 years.
Yeah, I agree. But you also have to commit to the shit too.
Yeah,
I say commit to this because,
for sure, okay.
Because the action is there. Mm-hmm. Like the action of, I 100% agree. You got to commit to the actions, right? But you also have to commit when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's one thing that I feel like
commit
people
to eating
don't
shit.
because you start something and it's very fulfilling, right? Because you start something
in the beginning, there's
it's
no
fun,
challenges.
honeymoon phase, right? It's fun, everything. Man, like we've been second floor for a year and a bit, year and a half, and there is work behind the scenes that needs to be done, and it's not fun. This is fun. Sitting and having conversation is fun. Setting up the cameras is fun. You know, editing is fun. But the 20, 30, 40 other things that go on behind the scenes is not fun. That's the shit. Right? So when you commit to the end result, like having a nice studio space now, having nice mics, having whatever, and having the end result, you know, hopefully, you know, gets to a bigger and bigger point.
Audience and people.
Right? That's committing to the result, but then committing to the shit behind the scenes needs to be there every single day.
One thing I'll say is like, that's something I was thinking about the other day, and it's almost kind of like an analogy where it's like anything you do, and I think it helps you commit to not only the results, not only the action, but it helps you commit to like the whole process in general. Is like, think of always of an exit strategy. What I mean by that is when you're going through something or you're working at a job, don't think of it just as a job, but think of it as an exit strategy. So start thinking of it as like a stepping stone almost, but you're looking for an exit. And the only way you can exit is if you accomplish that, accomplish that goal or whatever it is. So when you start thinking in that term and you're thinking, let's say if I'm working right now and I want to get to a certain point in my life, instead of treating my work as work and letting it hold me down and almost kind of like, oh, but that's what I want to do. I'm doing this right now. This is not fulfilling to me because I want to do that. I'm starting to think of my work now as an exit strategy where it's like, okay, how do I start treating it as like a stepping stone to help me get there? Whatever it is I can take from here. Because in any area we do, whether it's business, life, relationships, whatever we do, there's something you can take from it that will help you in your next venture, in your next life, in your next thing, right? So even in this life, if you believe in, you know, life and death, even in this life, whatever you do, we believe that that's going to help us in our afterlife. Right? So if you start thinking of life as an exit strategy, then you're going to do all the right things to make sure when you exit, you're prepared for the next step. So if you're thinking of, if I'm thinking of starting doing something for myself down the road, I need to start thinking of everything that's on my plate right now as an exit strategy of like, that's a stepping stone for me. And I'm going to take something from here that's going to help me next, whether it's like even if it's like a completely left field thing I want to do. I believe there's something in here that will help me, and I just need to start paying attention to that, start figuring out what is that one thing that's going to help me to exit out and then build what I want to build.
Hashtag exit strategy.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. You know, but it's funny because I was thinking about this, and because obviously we're at that point, you know, where we're figuring out our life, we're figuring out what we're trying to do, and again, take it to the next level, take it to the second floor. Hashtag second floor. Second floor podcast, #1 podcast in Edmonton.
That's right.
So we want to take it to the second floor, but how do you do that? Again, it's that stepping stone, right? It's like thinking about that exit strategy of like, this is where I'm at. I'm doing completely different things that I want to do in my life. Completely different things I want to do in my life. What can I take from here that I can apply here? Even if it's just a handshake, even if you just learn whatever you're doing, even if you just learn how to do a proper handshake, you can apply that skill to somewhere else in life.
Yeah.
So
I love that, man. Yeah. I think we're gonna wrap up.
I
want to ask you one. We asked this to all of our guests and
Okay.
ex-hosts, ex-partners. Yeah. What does it mean to be on the second floor, brother? And you know the analogy, so
yeah,
what
of
does
course.
it mean?
For me, again, second floor is always, from the very beginning, it's always meant to us stepping to the next level. That's always been our mindset behind second floor. And now even looking from outside, that's what you guys have done with your platform. That's what you guys have done with your own lives, with your personal, you and Kenny both. To me, being on second floor obviously just means stepping my own game up, taking it to the next level. And now I guess you can say I'm thinking in terms of an exit strategy, right? Like I'm thinking of like, how do I take where I'm at in life right now? How do I take that, figure out what I need to squeeze out of it, and then exit to the next step? And that's what second floor is. It's like, how do I get to the second floor?
Hey, I love it, bro. And why don't you do the honors of plugging in the slogan at the end of this, because a lot of people maybe not know this, but you made the slogan for us. So I'd love for you to do the honors and plug in the slogan and wrap this baby up.
Okay, see if I can. Okay. Fuck, that's pressure, because that just a little backstory, I guess, before I do this. Like, when I came up with the slogan, the survive, thrive, and good vibes, was like, I was thinking about what this podcast meant to me, and that's what, at that time, what came to me. So welcome to another episode of the Second Floor Podcast, where we learn how to survive, how to thrive, and how to keep the good vibes in life and business.
My man.
All right.
Mr. Saeed, thank you for coming onto the Second Floor in the brand new series, brand new episode, brand new studio.
Yes.
Many more conversations I look forward to.
Me too, man. Thank you for having me.